Marcus felt the ship shake violently as it descended through the dense atmosphere of Sereth. The controls flickered, and the warning alarms blared in his ears, but he couldn't escape the pull of gravity around him. His heart pounded as the ship plummeted faster than expected. The hull creaked and groaned under the immense pressure, and for a moment he thought he might not survive this crash landing. His hands gripped the controls tight, his knuckles white, as he fought to regain control of the ship, but it was hopeless. In the final moments before impact, Marcus braced himself for the worst. Everything went dark. With a violent jolt, the ship slammed into the ground, sending debris scattering in every direction, but somehow, against all odds, he survived the crash. The air was thick with dust and smoke as Marcus struggled to unbuckle himself from the twisted remains of his seat. Groaning, he pulled himself free, his body aching from the violent impact. The world outside was a blur, a landscape of jagged rocks and barren plains, where the ground seemed to stretch endlessly into the horizon. He could barely stand the crushing gravity pushing down on him with every step. His legs felt as if they might snap beneath the weight of it all. Then he heard a sound of faint rustling as something moved through the thick air with incredible speed and precision. Before he could react, something large and powerful appeared in front of him, a figure bathed in the strange light of this alien world. The creature was tall, towering over him, with a form that seemed human but with distinct features that marked it as something far beyond earthly standards. Her skin shimmered with a strange metallic hue, her eyes glowing with a brilliant intensity. The weight of her presence was overwhelming, and Marcus instinctively took a step back. "Are you injured?" The figure's voice was surprisingly soft despite its power, her words cutting through the thick air with an almost melodic quality. Marcus blinked in disbelief, unable to comprehend what he was seeing, but he managed to nod his head in answer, feeling the weight of his exhaustion creeping in. "I'm fine," he muttered, his voice hoarse from the crash. But as he looked into her glowing eyes, he felt something he couldn't explain, not fear, but a strange sense of awe, and something more that he couldn't place. "I'm Keela," she said, her gaze softening as she took a step closer. "You are lucky to be alive. This planet's gravity is not kind to those who are not prepared." Marcus stood frozen in place, staring at the alien before him. Her presence was unlike anything he had ever felt before, powerful yet calming. Her eyes studied him intently as if she could see right through him. He could hardly breathe under the crushing weight of the planet's gravity, but somehow he managed to find his voice. "Keela," he repeated her name, still trying to process what had just happened. "What are you?" Keela took a slow step forward, her movement graceful despite the immense pressure from the gravity. She studied him for a moment, then spoke. "I am Cerethian, one of the few who still survive on this world. Our people were once many, but now we are few. The gravity of this planet grows stronger with each passing day. It is a force we cannot escape." Her words were heavy with an unspoken sorrow that made Marcus feel a pang of guilt. He didn't understand. "Our kind can endure it, but even we are beginning to weaken." Marcus swallowed hard, trying to push through the dizziness that threatened to overtake him. As he struggled to stand, his legs were already trembling under the weight of the atmosphere around him. But you're different," he said, barely able to speak the words. "How can you survive here this long?" Keela's eyes softened as she glanced at the ground for a brief moment. "It is not by choice human, it is the legacy of our ancestors. We are the last of our kind. But even our strength has limits. We cannot survive much longer if the gravity continues to increase." She paused for a moment as if considering how much to say next. "There is a way to stop it, but it is not something I can do alone." Marcus narrowed his eyes despite the overwhelming weight. He could feel the curiosity growing inside of him. "What way?" he asked. "What is it that you need from me?" She hesitated before answering, her voice low and hesitant. "The artifact deep within the core of this planet. It is said to be the source of the gravity. Its power has only grown over time, but it can be deactivated only by one who is not of this world. It is said that a human could do what no Cerethian could, but it will not be easy." Marcus felt his heart race at her words. "And you want me to help you deactivate it?" he asked incredulously. "How am I supposed to do that?" Keela's eyes gleamed with a mixture of hope and despair. You have no choice now, human. You are the only one who can save us. Marcus stood there in stunned silence, the weight of Keela's words settling over him, like the planet's crushing gravity. How could he possibly help with something so impossible? His body already felt like it was falling apart under the immense pressure of the planet's atmosphere. His bones aching with every breath, every movement, felt like it might be his last. Yet here was this alien standing before him, asking for something far beyond the scope of anything he had ever imagined. He opened his mouth to protest, but the words caught in his throat. Keela's gaze never wavered as she looked at him with a quiet determination, her eyes burning with a fierce intensity that made Marcus feel small in comparison. I know this is difficult for you, human, but there is no other way. You must endure if you are to save us all, she said, her voice low but unwavering. Marcus clenched his fists at his sides, trying to steady himself against the crushing weight around him. I don't know how I can do this. I'm not built for this planet, he muttered, his voice barely audible, but Keela nodded as if she had anticipated his doubts. I know, she said softly, but your kind is different. There is strength in you, a resilience that we do not possess. She took a step closer, her hand gently resting on his arm. I have seen it in your eyes. Since we first met, you will survive where we cannot. You just need to believe in that strength. Marcus stared at her for a long moment, feeling a surge of anger, frustration, and something else he couldn't place. But in the end, there was no denying it. He couldn't just walk away from this. No matter how impossible it seemed, he had already made his choice. The moment he stepped out of the wrecked ship and into this alien world, there was no turning back now. He took a deep breath and nodded, his resolve hardening. What do I need to do? He asked, his voice steady now despite the storm of thoughts and fears swirling in his mind. Keela's face softened with a hint of a smile. First, we must prepare you for the trials ahead. The artifact is buried deep in the heart of the planet, hidden away in a temple that no one has set foot in for centuries. It is a place of unimaginable danger. But if we are to succeed, you must be ready for what lies ahead. She paused, and for the first time, Marcus saw the weight of her own fear in her eyes. Are you ready to face the impossible? Marcus looked at her, meeting her gaze with determination. I don't know what will happen, but I'll do whatever it takes. The journey to the temple was unlike anything Marcus had ever experienced. The gravity made every step feel like a battle. His muscles screamed in protest with every move he made, yet with Keela by his side, guiding him through the harsh terrain, they pressed forward. As if driven by an unseen force, the land around them was desolate, jagged rocks and deep ravines, stretching as far as the eye could see. Nothing seemed to live here save for the two of them, as they marched through the unrelenting weight of the planet's surface. Keela moved effortlessly ahead of him. Her body seemed to defy the planet's gravity, her every step graceful, as if she were born to endure this world, while Marcus stumbled behind her, feeling the strain of his human limitations. At every turn, his vision blurred, and his thoughts foggy from the overwhelming pressure that threatened to crush him with each passing minute. But he refused to stop. He refused to let his fear take control. You're doing well, human, Keela's voice broke through the fog of exhaustion. Keep pushing a little longer, we're almost there. Marcus grunted in response, but couldn't muster the energy to reply. The weight pressing down on him was unbearable. His chest felt as though it might cave in at any moment, but he forced himself to take another step, and then another, even as his legs quaked with each movement. Finally, after what felt like hours of walking, they arrived at the entrance to the temple, the massive stone doors looming before them, covered in ancient runes that seemed to pulse with a faint light. It was a place of power, ancient and alive, with secrets buried deep beneath the surface of the planet. Keela placed her hand against the door, and the rooms glowed brighter, the stone groaning as if acknowledging her presence. This is it, she said, her voice sullen. Inside is the heart of the artifact, where we must go to deactivate it. But be warned, human, the temple is no ordinary structure. It was built to protect the artifact at all costs, and the trials inside are deadly. Marcus swallowed hard, his heart pounding in his chest, but he couldn't back down now. He had come this far, and there was no turning back. I'm ready, he said, his voice hoarse but firm. Keela turned to him, her expression unreadable. "Then let's begin," she said, and with that the stone doors creaked open, revealing the dark passageway within the temple. As they stepped inside, Marcus felt a chill wash over him, the air thick with ancient power. The very walls seemed to pulse with a strange energy, as if the temple itself was alive and aware of their presence. The path ahead was shrouded in darkness and danger, yet he knew he had no choice but to continue on. Every step forward was a step deeper into the unknown. As Marcus and Keela moved deeper into the temple, the air grew colder, and the walls seemed to close in around them. With each step, the darkness swallowed them whole, until even the faint glow from the runes on Keela's skin seemed to dim in the oppressive blackness. The temple was alive with an ancient, malevolent presence, its every creak and groan a reminder that they were not alone. Marcus's heart raced as the gravity continued to press down on him, heavier now in this dark place. His legs wobbled beneath him, but he refused to slow down, not with the weight of everything at stake. Keela moved with ease through the dark, her eyes scanning the walls as she led him down twisting corridors that seemed to shift and change with every turn. "The trials are not far now," she said, her voice low but steady. "The first will test your strength." Marcus's mouth went dry as he processed her words. Just the idea of a trial was enough to make his pulse spike. But what kind of strength was she talking about? His muscles were already screaming for rest. His body was starting to fail him under the weight of the gravity. But there was no time for weakness, no time to question anything. Ahead, the passageway opened into a vast chamber, the ceiling lost in shadows. The air was thick with tension. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. As he stepped forward, the ground beneath his feet shifted, and suddenly the walls seemed to close in, trapping them in the center of the room. A low rumble filled the space, and before Marcus could react, massive stone statues rose from the floor surrounding them. The figures were monstrous, towering over them with glowing eyes that seemed to track their every movement. The statues were armed with enormous weapons, swords and spears of stone that shimmered with deadly intent. "This is the first trial," Keela said as she positioned herself beside Marcus. "You must defeat them if you wish to proceed, but remember, these are not just statues, they are guardians of the temple, and they will fight until they are destroyed." Marcus's heart thundered in his chest as one of the guardians raised its massive sword high. The other statues followed suit, closing in on them. With terrifying speed, the air seemed to crackle with energy as the gravity around them intensified, making every movement feel like wading through thick molasses. Marcus's breath was ragged as he scrambled to dodge the first strike, the weight of the blade sending shockwaves through the air. Keela moved with precision, dodging and striking with speed and grace, but Marcus felt his body growing weaker with every second, the gravity pressing down harder and harder as the guardians advanced with relentless fury. He could barely keep up. His body was on the edge of collapse, but he knew that if he didn't find a way to fight back, they would both be crushed. With one final desperate push, Marcus lunged forward, using every ounce of his strength to strike at the closest guardian, his fist connecting with its stone armor, sending cracks through its surface. The guardian staggered back, giving Marcus just enough time to regain his footing, but the battle was far from over. The battle raged on as the guardians closed in on them, one after another. The weight of their strikes sent tremors through the ground, shaking Marcus to his core. His body screamed for rest, but there was no time to stop, no time to hesitate. The guardians were relentless, each movement calculated, each attack designed to wear them down. Keela fought with precision, her blades flashing as she cut through stone with ease, but even her strength was tested under the immense pressure of the gravity. Marcus barely had time to react as a guardian swung its massive sword toward him. He barely managed to duck beneath it, feeling the air shift as the blade passed inches from his face. The gravity made every dodge more difficult, every movement slower, but he refused to let it defeat him. He could feel the pressure building inside him, as if the weight of the entire planet was bearing down on his shoulders. But he kept fighting. He spotted an opening, a weakness in one of the Guardian's movements. Its sword raised too high, leaving an opening in its defenses. Marcus acted on instinct, lunging forward. With everything he had his fist, striking the Guardian's chest. With a force he didn't know he still had inside of him, the stone cracked under the impact, and the Guardian staggered back for a moment, its movement slowed. That moment was all Marcus needed. He grabbed a nearby jagged rock and swung it with all his strength into the Guardian's face, shattering its stone features. In a single blow, the Guardian collapsed to the ground, its body crumbling into dust. The other Guardians hesitated for a brief second before charging again. But Marcus was ready now, the adrenaline coursing through his veins, giving him strength beyond his limits. He fought with fury, each strike bringing him closer to victory. Kayla fought beside him, her movements fluid and deadly as she took down one Guardian after another. But Marcus could see the toll it was taking on her. She was starting to slow as well. The gravity was wearing them both down. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the last Guardian fell, its body crumbling into dust. As the room fell silent, Marcus stood panting heavily, his body trembling from the effort. The weight of his exhaustion was overwhelming. But there was no time to rest. They had to move forward. Kayla looked at him, her face hard with determination, but there was a hint of respect in her eyes. "You've done it," she said, her voice steady but weary. "We can continue, but the next trial will be even worse." Marcus nodded, unable to speak, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He felt like he was about to collapse, but there was no turning back now. They had come this far, and he was not about to fail now. The next trial came swiftly. The ground beneath Marcus's feet seemed to tremble as they advanced deeper into the temple, its walls growing darker and more oppressive, the air thick with an energy that felt ancient and alive. Kayla led the way, her movements sharp and deliberate, but even she seemed on edge now. The gravity was becoming unbearable, pressing down with each step. Marcus could feel his bones aching and his vision blurring, but he kept his eyes on Kayla, knowing that they had come too far to fail now. The chamber they entered was unlike any they had seen before. It was vast and circular, with a domed ceiling that seemed to stretch infinitely above them. The walls were covered in intricate symbols and markings, glowing faintly in the dim light. A central pedestal stood in the middle of the room. At its base, a dark, swirling energy pulsed with a life of its own. "This is the final trial." Kayla's voice was tight with tension. "The artifact is within reach, but to activate it you must face the most difficult challenge yet, the trial of the mind." Marcus furrowed his brow. "What does that mean?" he asked, struggling to understand through the haze of exhaustion. "The artifact is bound to the core of this temple," Kayla explained, her voice low. "It requires a sacrifice of willpower and resolve, but to reach it you must first confront your deepest fears and desires. Only then will you be able to unlock its power." Before Marcus could respond, the ground beneath them shifted, and a low hum filled the air. The symbols on the walls began to glow brighter, the darkness around them twisting into shapes that seemed to mock their every move. Suddenly, the room was no longer empty. Shadows manifested into figures that seemed to mirror their every thought, their worst fears taking form. Marcus stumbled back as a shadowy version of himself stepped forward, its eyes hollow and cold, its movements jerky, as if controlled by something beyond his comprehension. The figure raised its hand, and Marcus could feel the weight of its presence pressing down on him, a twisted reflection of his own self-doubt and fear. "You are weak." The shadow's voice was a distorted version of his own. "You cannot survive this world. You do not belong here. You will never be enough." The words struck deep like a knife into his chest. All the doubts he had tried to bury rose to the surface, every insecurity, every fear of failure. His body froze as the shadow came closer, its words cutting through him like a blade. Kayla turned to him, her voice unwavering. "This is not real, Marcus. Do not let it consume you. You are stronger than this. Face your fear and the trial will end." Marcus felt his heart racing, his hands shaking as the shadow loomed over him. But he closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. He focused on the strength he had shown in every challenge up to this point, the battles he had fought, the sacrifices he had made. He was not the person the shadow said he was more than that. With a sudden burst of clarity, he stepped forward, breaking through the illusion, the shadow recoiling in defeat as it crumbled away into nothingness. The room fell silent, the darkness dissipating as the pedestal before them lit up with a brilliant light, the artifact now exposed in all its glory. Kayla's voice broke through the silence. "You did it, Marcus. She said with a quiet smile, "You have proven your worth now. We can save my people."